All right, everybody, it's episode 199 of the SEO Vault. Welcome to the show. And today it's going to be myself, Victor Perez, as well as Emily. Emily, if you could say
Hey,
hi to everybody.
hello, everybody.
So, Emily works within, well, she actually leads the press department. So, she's been a part of Web 20 Ranker for how many years now?
6.5.
Six
Yeah.
and a half. Okay, so that's definitely more years than I have known Web 24. So that sounds actually really cool. And I can imagine how many campaigns you've gone through. So, can you actually, before we, or here, let me actually announce everything. Before we get into it, as far as learning more about you and your department, just a quick laundry list of items to do here. So, brand updates. We're going to announce a few different updates across our brand, and then we will also talk a little bit about a blog post that Emily and her team put together for us. If you're not checking out the blog posts, by the way, we're putting out a really good one every week, so be on the lookout for those. And then, of course, we have the news as usual. So, just a few different topics from this past week. Nothing too crazy, thankfully, but without further ado, let's get back into learning about the press team. So, Emily, can you back us up for a moment and tell us how did you actually get started with the SEO industry?
With an offer for Web 20, there was a position open for an editor that was thrown at me by Jessie when she worked here.
Okay, so that's pretty cool. You got to jump right into the same department, so that means that you've actually gotten experience throughout the full 6.5 years since then. So I'm
Yeah.
guessing editorial. So basically, you were signed up to basically just do the quality assurance across all the press.
Yep, I did all the proofreading and edits. And then shortly after that, it was sending PRs for approval, emailing clients back and forth, syndicating PRs until I had it all. And yeah, in less
Okay,
than a year.
that's pretty cool. And I definitely have a bunch of questions for you today, especially some that I've been getting from different people that just reach out to us for help. So thankfully, I'll be able to get your feedback on a bunch of really important questions there. But before I get into those, I guess the next thing I want to ask you is across your time at Web 20 Ranker, so across those 6 years, what kind of a change have you implemented over those years that's kind of improved the way everything works there?
Uh, well,
Or just like
in
one
six,
improvement, I guess.
yeah, well, because in 6.5 years, I pretty much, developed the whole department, but at this point, changed everything that
True.
what little there was at the, yeah. So, I mean, everything's kind of been developed. Um,
Can you pick out one maybe like your favorite change that you made? I don't know if maybe there was like one that was done suddenly over everything else.
well, I know I put, and that was a couple years ago, I put some like an evaluation might be the wrong word, but just a different editing process and like a feedback system in place with my editors to the writers. And all of our writers' qualities improved like significantly after that. Like all of them will tell you that, and like we can attest to that, just based on like the feedback that they were getting from that system.
True, and then I know even people reaching out or even people putting orders through are able to reach out for some help too, which I've noticed definitely is helping a bunch of people who just haven't done press releases before. So, okay, it sounds pretty cool, but yeah, with the press, I mean, quality is so big, especially nowadays, seeing more changes being done as far as how Google really reads those. So I can imagine just how much different press releases have gotten. But do you have any examples of like, I guess like bad PRs that people have tried to push through? Like any low quality types of examples that maybe people should stray away from?
I don't know, like the first person like making the PR all about like as if the company wrote it. Like that's not good. We can't publish that. It needs to be a not salesy. It needs to come from a third person objective tone. Um, Links in the PRs, like lots of links.
Oh
That's
yeah.
not good. Once, I mean, if they submit it to us and they want it written, we put the links in and it's only a couple. But a lot of times we see with the syndication only PRs that are submitted ready to go, like we have all these issues that we have to get back with the client about. Okay, well, there's too many links, or the title's way too long, or the content's there's not enough, or it's in first person and it can't be. There's a lot. We do usually have like a lot of back and forth when the client writes their own press release and submits it to us.
Yeah, I can imagine. Can you tell us about something I'm really curious about? Is what about when try to people try to push like financial or legal related content? How does that play out?
Pretty much the same with legal. Obviously, we have some extra restrictions with legal about the different types of content. We have to be careful about like specific case details in the sense where it's like talking about a third party or somebody else. Like if there's a lawsuit and you're talking about the person that you're suing and why you're suing them, it's like defaming them, even though it whatever. But you can't publish that because some of the news sites that we publish to don't want anything about, if it's not coming directly from that company, or if they think there's going to be any type of backlash from it, like they don't want it, so it gets filtered out. But I think law has gotten a lot more lenient lately. Like we've been able to push more through it with, like, even with it being about specific like cases, as long as it's again not like targeting a specific person or a specific place or whatever in the article. Like if it's just like a general lawsuit or like general, like we won this case and yada yada yada, like that kind of stuff's kind of gotten through fine.
Okay. Yeah, I would say that's pretty important because I've definitely run into some situations where the attorney wants to kind of boast about a win that they made, but the win happens to also go into detail. And this it really depends on the case, but this one in particular basically went into detail with something that could be said is kind of defamatory for the person that lost, and it's like it really there's so many specifics that could happen, but yeah, at the end of the day the actual news sites do have to approve. So that's another thing to keep in mind. You can't just push whatever you want out there. And I've definitely seen a level of preparedness that has come from the experience that the press team has also, because like reaching out, I'll always like to ask like, is this okay, or how could this be changed to fit? But that's good to hear that we definitely can be publishing stuff about cases to some degree, because there's a lot of law firms that just have so much to share when it comes to the wins that they're making. So yeah, I think my feedback for anybody that's listening who might have a law firm client and they're in that position that they're trying to push out a press release, I would say also think about how this can apply for all of your other clients in the law niche, where and maybe it doesn't include every single client, but some of them they might be getting involved with cases that are setting precedents. So I like to say if something is pivotal in the law, if it's something that needs to be noted for other cases in the future, that's something that makes sense to try to push it out as some kind of a story. Whether or not the story gets accepted, there's a lot of other factors in place, but that's good though that people can reach out to you guys, especially for help. So if anybody is curious, you can always reach out through the chat on the bottom right of the website if you happen to need that type of help, especially if you need to prepare for an order, because it's never instant, right? Or at least not if it's about the law and you could have some pushback from the news sites, right?
Right.
So definitely kind of keep that in mind if you're trying to push things out. Sometimes people are last minute, but it takes a little bit of back and forth depending on how experienced like your internal team, whoever's pushing out the order. Because I guess at this point, now that I've pushed out so many, I kind of know what to know, or I kind of know what's okay and what's not. So I know that by itself kind of shaves a few days off of the entire process. But
Well, and I mean, in the intake form, it's like laid out like our specific requirements that, like, if you're submitting a pre-written press release, like that's right there. So as long as everyone's following like those rules, that should hopefully help like save the back and forth. Because if you submit a press release that is ready to go, you can have it out the next day. Like
Right.
you like we can get it done quickly when it meets our guidelines.
That's true. That's a good one because it kind of comes back into what your process is and making sure again whoever's ordering is reading all the instructions. But okay, so now I want to ask you because there's a lot of companies that do press releases in some type of way, and they don't have the same quality assurance that we have. They don't have the same team either. But I want to ask you outside of the typical delivery like fulfillment, what they get with a press release. What does your team here at Web 20 have that other people don't?
Uh, I think for there's a couple things I can think of, but like our the writing and the quality that we get from our writers, I do hear that a lot from like our clients and everything that like we have excellent writers. I know like with AI now, like a lot of our clients will come and they'll be like, I can tell this was written by a real person, and like we appreciate that so much because other companies are obviously going AI and it might work, it might not, but
Or I guess
our writer.
using it in too simple of ways, probably.
Right. Yeah. And it just depends on how you use it, right? Seriously. But and then like our targeted media outreach is like I'd say better than our competitors, like easily. Um just the the time and depth we put into the outreach and creating a specific list for, whatever client we're trying to get news out to or the journalists.
Yeah, so I think that's a pretty huge addition to the press release process. I'm trying to think how far back was it added? I guess it's within the context pretty new, right?
Honestly, no. Targeted media outreach, we've had that. It's been a lot of years, but we've revamped it a couple, like maybe 2 years ago. And
Okay.
we've, and that's like when we revamped it, we made it a lot better. And I think that's like when I really appreciate it. But we had the service before that too. And I mean, it was still good, but we definitely made it so much better. And we actually get like results and clients, podcasts, interviews, actual like links posted on local sites and things like that.
Yeah, so I think that's something I wanted to talk about because, well, for one, you did come through and revamp the process, so it's definitely not, or it's definitely much better than what it was before. But it's something that I hear a lot of people kind of like indirectly saying that it's something that they would need, but then they're not aware that Web 20 exactly does it. And it's something that's huge, also, I think, for the future because the more and more attention that Google provides, like for the brand, for its entire entity, not just the website GBP, but everything, um, what it pulls from other places of authority, like news websites. As this all becomes more important, I think it's more important for us to, as an agency, us agency owners, speaking from that context, I think it's important to try and come up with a good way to incorporate this type of offering into your campaigns. So I guess I mean from a pretty baseline point, it's a staple to do press releases within an SEO campaign, especially local ones. But something that I don't see people doing is that method or that process rather of doing outreach with the press release. So yes, you can put out press releases, but and how much was it again as an add-on? I think it's only like $105 as an add-on.
$133 add-on.
133. So for only $133 added onto the release, you could add that very powerful process into place, which obviously you get the press release, you get that mention on a specific news website, and that does come up when you do branded searches for that business, and you get all that conversion benefit, the perceived authority. But on the SEO side, I guess you end up getting that other process to I mean, everybody buys links, right? Or maybe you don't buy links, but you have a process in place to maybe do outreach for links, and they vary in quality. We obviously have really good ones, but they don't compare to getting something from a real local news station. or any news station where they push out the story and all of a sudden it gains traction, it gains traffic and clicks. That is just not really seen across the board with other guest posts or just link inserts, any other type of link offering from an agency. So it's like, I guess when I see people that have a large agency and they don't have a process for press releases, I kind of question why not. Um, because especially if it's only like $100, $130 to add on, all of a sudden you're taking the press release that you did and you're adding to it by adding the process of people outreaching manually to other journalists. So, and like you said, that could be just getting onto podcasts. So obviously they'll reach out through the email that you provide, and then as Web 20 ranker will help the agency get connected with the business so they could kind of do a follow-up piece or whatever. But as you said, you can get podcast links, you could get links from other bloggers, and depending, it really varies, I guess. But
Yeah,
sometimes
and
you
they
can even,
create relationships for further things. We've had, journalists come back and say, did blah, blah, blah do another piece because we liked or whatever. And it's just like, yeah, they literally will come back to you and you can continue.
yeah, and that's like, I know at least for certain niches it can be huge. Like I guess any high price SEO package, anything with law, I think is huge. A lot of lawyers, they like to really see their name out there. And especially if they start to get some traction as far as people reaching out, trying to cover the story further or in a different way. I know that's huge. Only like just on the recognition itself, people like clients definitely see the value in that. So even if you don't have the means to do an entire press department like what we have at Web 20 Ranker, you can definitely leverage the experience here under Emily's team, and with that process, pretty affordable one, to be able to outsource that entire process for your agency. Now, I want to kind of give a disclaimer because obviously not everybody's going to land beautiful links. Can you give any tips for anybody that's looking to put out a very special article?
Yeah, I mean, it's really important with the media outreach that the article is newsworthy or like current, interesting. It's got to be about something that people are going to want to read and, open and read and actually write about, not just this plumber expanded their services. Like people might probably don't care about that. Maybe in a small local town, maybe he wants
Yeah,
to,
maybe,
but
but
right, but in reality, you need some real news, right? You need something that people actually want to talk about and think that people are going to want to read, right? So like that's super important.
do you have any
Um,
tip for, like, okay, let's say you're speaking to an agency owner who's got a group of clients, they'd like to do press releases, but they would like to do it at an elevated level. Because obviously, if you just need extra mentions for your GBP and you just need maybe to improve crawlability across your website, which is maybe new, sure, press releases are huge for that too. But what about if they're trying to do a more elevated strategy where they potentially can get better topics? How would you help the agency owner coach their clients to make their topics maybe a little bit better? Any tips you can share there?
well, I mean, it depends what they have going on. So, I mean, if they are involved in any type of events or anything that they could write about in that sense, like that's great. Otherwise, like I don't know. I mean, I utilize sometimes like AI, ChatGPT to kind of help facilitate some ideas, but you can only get so newsworthy with those two, right? Sometimes you actually have to get out there and do some stuff to like generate some news to like actually have something to write about. So like if you are doing an event, some kind of community service, depends on what the business is, right? Uh, it really depends. It's different for every niche and every client, right? You can't look at it as like a one fits one size fits all thing. You gotta like come at everything differently.
That's
Every
true. So maybe if you're niche specific as an agency, it might be way easier for you to actually do a strategy that works at a broad level versus if you do all types of niches, then you might need to really rely on like your SEO tax or maybe because you might have a press release person, but you'll really need to leverage your team to be able to have a nice strategy. Or, Web 20 ranker, we can certainly come up with more generic articles if you just need it for the pure SEO benefit. So I guess another thing I would add to that, just along the lines of trying to increase the newsworthiness of a topic, another thing I would say is grab the target niche of the client and then try to do a little bit of Google searching through news articles. You can use the news section on Google to just put in variations of the service query and try to come up with just anything that's happening in the news now. Now that is essentially just the strategy of like news jacking, which you might see it a lot on YouTube, especially. At least I see it. I see people doing that a lot, vloggers or whatever, where you try to like latch on to just about anything that's getting traffic for that current moment or that current month or so, in the hopes of winning over some more traffic or users. Now it's a little bit different with the press release article, but if you're just the minimal thing is to try to get more views on the topic. And if you think about the press releases, it's like maybe there's not going to be anybody that's really clicking through the promoted section of a news site, but if they open up their Google News app or whatever news app, it could be Flipboard, it could be any of those. The websites like Digital Journal, AP News, Benzinga, all of those, they do land in the news apps. Now, depending on if it'll serve people that maybe have been searching those same topics, or maybe it'll serve it to people who, to some degree, needed that type of service or something. There's a lot of variables, but at the end of the day, if you have a nice title that is, I guess, something newsworthy, something that's going to grab their attention, you're going to earn the person's click and get more traffic to the press release article itself, which of course gives you a boost on the SEO side. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah, the title is super important.
right, the title. Just thinking
Super
about,
important.
okay, how is anybody gonna get to this page if the title's not click worthy? So that's another one to think, because a lot of people like to just throw keywords in there. It's like, sure that helps, but maybe if you're trying to boost things up to another level, you kind of have to think a little bit deeper than that. But again, goes back into strategizing, which, at least if you are totally lost and this is the first time you're doing a press release for your clients and you want to make sure you're putting it out in a proper way, definitely reach out to us and get connected with that press team through the chat on the Web 20 Ranker website. Now I wanted to ask, okay, so we went through some tips there to help people do press release articles. Okay, and then we talked about the targeted media outreach. Are there any other updates we should talk about with the press offerings at Web 20 Ranker?
Um, we swapped out MarketWatch for Benzinga in the AP News brand feature service.
Right, right. So that's another.
Otherwise, it's the only update I can think of.
Okay, that's a good point, because some news websites allow certain things, some don't. Some sounds like stop taking some of those promoted articles altogether.
Stuff changes all the time,
So
literally. I mean, it is. It's an ever-changing industry.
yeah, so definitely keep that in mind. These are all completely separate companies run by completely separate people. So be on the lookout. If you read the pages, like the product pages, we'll keep those updated as far as like what main news websites you'll land on. But if you're ever just confused or trying to make sure, you can reach out through the support chat just to make sure you don't miss any of the updates and have your expectations out of line there. But we do keep up the quality of the releases. So you said we replaced it with actually Benzinga, which is definitely another very authoritative news place. So another
Yeah,
great
absolutely.
replacement for that offering there. So yeah, I would say, just to kind of wrap up that section there, I would say again, if you're not using press releases in your local SEO campaigns, you should really, really reconsider. I think I feel like, Emily, you've probably seen all sorts of different businesses that have made use of press releases, but I guess at the end of the day, if you're not using them, you're definitely missing out in your campaigns. You have some type of gap that's there, especially because, like, And a lot of times we'll do like backlink analysis or anchor text analysis, and some of the links are actually press releases or promotional types of articles. So definitely make sure you are looking into this if not already. And of course, we have a very affordable way to do that. Do it at a white label in a white label manner from Web 20 Ranker. So okay, so let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about some brand updates really quick. So we have a CTR test that's ongoing right now. So if you're not signed up for the SEO Mad Scientist newsletter, you're definitely going to want to do that as soon as you can. We only test very valuable things. I guess if you think about it, like we're only going to spend our time testing things that a lot of people are wondering and that could make a really big difference. So be on the lookout. Right now, we are testing various CTR methods, or sorry, CTR manipulation. So click through rate, bringing in the user. So I think the way I described it in a previous email that was sent out was, you know, let's think about it this way. Let's get specific, right? Let's say indexation. So you have a variety of different properties that might make up your local SEO campaign, whether you use press releases or not, but you're definitely going to use citations, profiles, all sorts of directory listings, maybe Chamber of Commerce article submissions, all sorts of random things that people make use of in their SEO campaigns. Not all of them get traffic though. So what am I getting at? I'm pretty much talking about indexation. So indexation is very different nowadays, right, Emily? At least compared to like, let's say, like a few years back.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
it's a different game now, getting your properties indexed. So if you're having all sorts of properties that you're making use of, you also have to check which ones are getting indexed, or rather, you might realize that you weren't able to make a big push like you thought because the properties that you put out didn't actually index. They maybe they didn't even get crawled either in a more serious situation. But um, getting properties indexed, right? So sure, you can build links to them, and if you do a managed campaign with Web 20 Ranker, we have tons of different ways where this is already being done. But what if you are trying to create a solution that doesn't revolve you having that level of attention for your properties? So let's say you put out a network blog, but you don't want to be building links to it, at least not in an expensive way. Okay, well, one way that can really change things up as far as keeping those pages indexed and not spending too much money could be bringing in what's missing. What's missing, that would be the traffic. So a bit of a long drawn explanation there. But if you can force the traffic that's needed to maintain something on the Google index, then that could really change up how your campaigns are run. So we wanted to find out for you. So that's what we're testing right now with the SEO Mad Scientist. And you can read up, I believe it's Lasha that's putting out a lot of the summaries, but you're going to want to stay in tune so that you can see the results after that, because we're testing all the different ways that people are using that level of manipulation right now, and we're going to be publicating all of the different movements so that you can see exactly how that plays out. Long story short, it looks like the GBPs in the test have been ranked, but whether they stayed ranked, that's a different question. So we're going to have to monitor those to see how that plays out. Okay, other than that, we have a new blog post. So, Emily, this is from you slash your team, correct?
Yeah, mainly my team.
Okay, can you tell us about this new blog post that should be up by the time this video's out?
Yeah, it is guidelines for effective press releases from an editor's perspective. So it goes into detail about some of the main thing issues that we see in the content, like the third person, like you need third person instead of first person. Um, some of the title requirements and like word count, things like that. Just some of the stuff that kind of focuses more on the content aspects and what a press release should look like.
Awesome. And then I see, yeah, you even have, and there's a section here for hyperlinks and keyword usage. So I think that one's really big for anybody pushing out articles. I mean, obviously, there's a lot that you'd want to go through here if this is like your first time doing it, but keep in mind I would say, especially because I like to look at links a lot, pay attention to your anchor text usage. Pay attention to what you're connecting together with the piece. And then, like Emily said previously, don't just put random properties in there without too much of a care. It really doesn't make the best use of the article. So, might as well read through this and kind of learn from what Emily's put together over the past several years. So, check that out on the Web20 Ranker website. But that will be it for our brand updates. All right. So we have a few pieces of SEO news. Nothing crazy this past week. Two different things on here that I wanted to touch on just really quickly. So a lot of times we're just reporting on things from the Google public relations type of people. We had like Danny Sullivan, John Mueller, obviously. So the first one here, published on SEO Roundtable, Google search liaison Danny Sullivan posted in a Google Webmaster Help forum. Somebody was essentially asking in a forum, hey, why isn't my website indexed? And people ask that all the time, especially newer websites, and especially people that don't have too much experience yet. But there's always anomalies that can happen too, which can lead us to try to get some reassurance from Google, even if we've already asked this question a million times in the past. Well, this time we got a little bit of a different answer. Danny Sullivan said, I do see the markup there. That's interesting that he mentioned that, right? He said, I see the markup. So he's mentioned the schema. That's interesting. But he also said, we might not be showing the URL because we don't have enough confidence in the name. So not too much else from it, but I think just from this I would take apart, should you spend time on schema? I think you should spend at least a minimal amount of time on schema, especially if your business is new and you're still trying to, let's say, develop or generate the right relevance. So obviously, every campaign that you're trying to rank, I guess you could say it's kind of missing authority to some degree. But I would say it's even more important for you to not forget to do some level of schema implementation if you're lacking relevance. Especially because this is giving me other ideas. It's like if you put up a new business and it's just there's nowhere authoritative to describe what you're for. There's just very low confidence on the platform. And at the end of the day, Google's trying to serve users. They might not be paying users, but they're valuable through their ads. So they're not going to show people a website if they're not fully confident about what it's about. So just an interesting little tidbit there. But the next one I wanted to talk about was from John Mueller. And was this one post? I think this one was the one where... Oh, okay, never mind. I've been following John Mueller on Reddit lately because I think it's interesting for him to go there. But this one was just on Twitter. So somebody was asking, and this is another common one, somebody was asking about dissecting spam links. Basically getting down to the point where it's like, hey, should I disavow or not? And I think we've covered this so many times here, but again, as a reminder, you should definitely not jump to conclusions and just disavow things. Even if some tool tells you that they're toxic links to some degree, it's not worth it from our experience. Or rather, just because you see spam links does not mean that you should disavow. So I'll tell you, like 99% of the times that I've came across it myself or heard about somebody else coming across it, that did end up disavowing, it usually harms the website to some degree. Either it does reduce the ranks or it just causes fluctuations for a while, especially if you're not replacing the mentions, if you're not constantly adding new ones, requiring new ones through some type of strategy. So just be mindful of that. No matter how low value a link is, it's low value, it's not zero value. And it's like, we might have a good process ourselves, like you yourself might have a good opinion about what's worth it for your campaign, but that's not what Google's opinion is, and you never know what their code just kind of decides. So just don't disavow them. If anything, Google's just going to ignore them. And if they generate any value at all, let's just keep them. Is my opinion on that. But John Mueller said, essentially, if you're buying links, if you're not buying links, don't disavow. So, take what you can from there, I guess. All right. So, okay, I don't see any other posts from within the local client takeover group, but if you have any to send to us, definitely go ahead and do so. One of the best places to go, honestly, could just be the local client takeover group. So if you're not already in there, make sure to go there to ask all your questions. You might get an answer pretty quick also, but you can also submit questions through the website too. I guess that's another good place. Now, that pretty much brings us to everything I wanted to talk about here today. But, Emily, do you have any other words you might give to somebody that's maybe that hasn't implemented press releases in their process yet, but is looking to do so, especially with Web 20 Ranker?
Yeah, I think that you should definitely look into that. I mean, it's super affordable, right? Our cheapest press release option's like less than $50. And I mean, that's for the bare minimum. And that you still building links and like helping your SEO there with the signals and again, affordable signals. I'd say if you're just getting into press releases for the first time, even I know we talked about the new blog that we just were launching, but I would look at the ultimate press release guide that we have. There's an ultimate strategies guide. We can link to it, but that literally goes over like all of the best practices that we would recommend in a press release. It's like my favorite blog that we've
Nice.
done. Yeah.
Okay, so definitely check out the description area of this video. If it's not in there, just go over, do a quick site search, and look for the ultimate, what was it called again? The ultimate press release guide?
Yeah, I think that's what it is in
They'll
on
pull it
site.
up. They'll pull it up over site search. My favorite way to jump quickly to a website. But
Right.
okay, that's pretty good starting place. Again, to check out the content that we've already put out, and then come back into the group, especially if you have something niche specific that you want to get done. Otherwise, if you have a variety of different niches, I'm sure you can get everything you need just ordering from the Web 20 Press team. So, all right. Now, I forgot there was one other news update here I wanted to touch upon because it also goes back to some of the other course or other information that we're putting out there. So, there was an article from this is the one I was looking at. So, John Mueller responded to somebody's question on Reddit, which is, I guess, just funny. But somebody was asking about undoing 301 redirects or when to undo them. So I think that this is something pretty relevant because we just finished talking about website structures and how to redo them, what the best way to form your own structure is. So if you haven't already checked out the course that we have on local client takeover, I put out a new course. It's called the local SEO course 3.0. So it goes through a lot of topics, but within there, you're going to want to look for the one that talks about website structures because that one kind of coincides with this topic here, somebody asking how to handle redirects. A lot of times when you take on a new campaign, you might need to restructure the website. And of course, especially if you're going to build links to it, you want to make sure you have all of your pages laid out the best way possible before you spend that much money. Or at least as you're getting things ramped up, you're probably going to want to address that sooner than later. And one of the biggest things that is involved with that is, of course, creating redirects. So the question somebody posted here on Reddit specifically was, okay, I made some changes to the structure of the website, especially some pages that had traffic. When can I undo the redirect? Is it fine after a week? No. But short answer, John said do not. John said you can change the redirect, but he does not recommend that you set up redirects just to redirect them somewhere else in the short term. So I would say the most recommendable thing to do, and this does matter a lot more if the given page that you redirected had traffic to begin with. but also if it had any progress on any ranking. This is going to be way more important. So implementing some type of tracking on your redirections so that you can see when the new page is indexed on Google, but two, when people stop flowing to the old URL. Now, that by itself might give you more info. It might end up showing you that you forgot to update the link somewhere else that was really important. Either way, definitely a way more recommendable way than just choosing an arbitrary or just choosing one kind of time period that's like, okay, after this time it just gets removed. It's just not the best way to do it. But yeah, that would be my advice for that one. But I think that kind of brings us to the very end of this episode. So I want to thank you, Emily, for joining me today, especially in the absence of Mike. I'm sure he will
Yeah.
be back next week. But we always see Mike. We always get to have insight from him. So it's great to have you on today. But as we wrap up here, if you have not liked if you have not liked this already, please go ahead and give us a like because it helps us out a bunch. And if you haven't subscribed yet, definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you don't like YouTube for any reason, we do also post on our website, seovault.com. That's where you can see all of the old episodes. So, thank you so much for joining us today, everybody. And as always, we appreciate the feedback that you send to us. That brings us to the end. So, we will see you all next week. Thank you again, Emily.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.